Okay, we continue with the series on the dragon variation of the Sicilian. This time I've chosen a game in which the sacrifice on c3 is played, the exchange sacrifice, and this is something that is very common in this dragon variation, and I would like to show you a game between Nicholson and Mestel, played in 1987, John Nicholson and Jonathan Mestel, and we get this Yugoslav attack again with bishop c4, and the position after h4 and h5. This is called the Soltis variation of the Yugoslav attack, Soltis, and we follow the main ideas again with this opposite castling. The bishop goes to b3 and the rook of black is played on c8. Now here there are different possibilities for white, but one of the most popular moves in this position is bishop to h6, actually a very straightforward idea of exchanging this dark square bishop, this dragon bishop that we saw in another video how dangerous it can be. So white wants to exchange that one and then concentrate on attacking on the king side. The best response for black is bishop takes h6. Now the idea is to move the queen, the white queen, away from the defense of c3, because as we see in this game, after the queen takes on h6, then there is this thematic sacrifice on c3. Rook takes c3, b takes c3, and we see that the idea of this sacrifice on c3 is to damage the pawn structure defending the white king. So this sacrifice on c3 gives possibilities for black to attack. Another thing that we see is that because there are not many open lines in this position, the difference between the rooks and the light pieces of black is not that big. So normally we say that a rook is stronger than a light piece. A rook we say is 5 points and a light piece, so a knight or a bishop, is 3. But in positions where there are not many open lines, then the strength of the rook is not very easy to exploit. So let's have a look at how the game continues. Queen to a5, the king goes to b1, rook to c8, and as you see, the attack of black is concentrated on this point c3 and the dark squares around the white king. Now, according to the book Play the Sicilian Dragon by Edward Deering, the best move here is g4 for white, but in the game not g4 was played, but knight to e2, trying to defend this c3 square. And the response of black was bishop to b5, attacking the knight on e2. This was defended by the rook, and then black didn't take on e2 and then on c3, but he played knight to c4, so bringing more pieces towards this white king, wanting to attack it. And white replied with king to a1, looking for a defense, looking for more shelter for his king. And the game continued now with e6, rook to d3, and now knight to e5. Now this knight attacks the rook on d3, and you see that this pawn is undefended, but actually it doesn't achieve, white doesn't achieve much if he takes this pawn on d6. We can have a look. In the game the move was played queen to d2, but let's have a look at rook takes d6. In that case, after exchanging here this light piece on e2, then there is queen takes c3 check, the king must go to b1, and now knight goes to c4, and we see a double threat, threatening mate on b2, and also threatening to retake this exchange here. So then this knight must be taken, and then black has a check on b4 once more, attacking the rook and the king. So after bishop b3, black can take on d6. So then we have an ending in which the material is equal. Well, actually it's not completely an ending yet. We can say this can be called still middle game, because the heavy pieces are on the board and the king is not completely safe. But anyway, the material is equal, and the difference is that the pawn structure of white is slightly less good than, slightly worse than the pawn structure of black. Now let's go back to the position in the game. After knight to e5, that was the last move, white played queen to d2. Now black took on d3, c takes d3, and then knight goes to d7. And after knight to d4, the black knight goes to c5, attacking this weak point d3. Bishop goes to c2, but that doesn't prevent black from taking on d3. Bishop takes d3, bishop takes d3, and now e5. Now we see why it was possible to take on d3 for black. That's because black also has a threat here. If the knight goes away, let's say for example here, then black wins the queen, giving a check here. There is this fork and the pawn cannot take because it's pinned. So that means that after e5, the white knight cannot leave this place. White played bishop to c4, defending this b3 square, and then black took on d4 the knight. Queen took back. The knight goes to a5, once more attacking this weak square, this weak pawn on c3. So we see after this sacrifice on c3 earlier in the game, the whole strategy of black is concentrated on this weak pawns on the c file. Bishop d5 was played, and black took on c3. Now let's have a short look out at the possibility of defending this pawn by rook to c1. In that case, black can continue the attack with b5, and then after the bishop has moved, then the c pawn still falls. So it doesn't make any sense of trying to defend this pawn. That's why white played bishop to d5, and black could take on c3. Now something very special happened in this game, because after rook to c1, rook c5 attacking the bishop, bishop went to b3, and here black played knight takes e4. And in this position, white resigned. And I can imagine in some way that maybe white thought, I'm losing one more pawn, I'm 2 pawns down, and still my king is not safe, and that's why he resigned. But actually, according to my engine, my Fritz engine, there is a way of saving the game for white, and that is by moving the rook to d1. Now this may look strange, but there is a very interesting variation, and that is knight to c3, queen takes on d6, giving this rook on d1, because if this rook is taken, then white has queen takes g6 check, and after king g8, white has perpetual check here. So actually we can see and ask ourselves if after this position it was really necessary to resign for white or not. So this is maybe a question that you can try to answer and see if there is any win for black. But anyway, the main purpose of this video was to explain you about this sacrifice on c3. So in this moment of the game, taking on h6 to be able to take on c3, and then concentrating the black play on this weakness on c3. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll continue my research this variation, the dragon variation of the Sicilian, and come back with new videos and new games. Thank you very much.